Hi guys, welcome to my channel. This is a DVR recording of my maiden flight of the Swordfish, AtomRC Swordfish. You're going to see a very hairy takeoff in a minute. As soon as it's up off the grounds, went all over the shot. Not exactly ideal, but managed to get it back in the end. And really, so I kind of flight to test it out, make sure it's all working properly, as it had been playing silly buggers quite a bit before I left and delayed my leaving by about an hour and a half. Wouldn't arm, the usual funky errors from RG Pilot. Yes, you can see the focus mode coming in. It's really quite bad at Walksnail. My next flight I'll be definitely switching this off. It really does look very bad. While the middle is the same quality, it's just, yeah, really struggles with it. We are running 50 megabits mode on 700 milliwatt, based on all the talk about the 1000 milliwatt and 1200 being quite unstable. So I wasn't going particularly far today, just wanted to make sure the plane was working. I'm not going to have major problems. So yeah, it's just a general flying around the airfield. Seeing my children there and me sat in the pilot's area. And yeah, we're smack bang in the middle of nowhere, but the plane's been a bit of a difficult build from the RG Pilot standpoint. It's just such an enormous learning curve compared to like iNav. I previously ran Eagle Tree vectors. I've got quite a few of those actually. Brilliant little flight controllers. Unfortunately, they went out of business, so yeah, not great. They didn't release the source code, and that's kind of like an end-of-life product now. But you know, it's definitely held the crown, I think, for if you're going to fly a wing or any type of fixed-wing model. The Vector was the winner. Again, just doing some more flying around, trying to trim the plane in, as it was miles out, as you could see when we took off. And we will run around and start doing a RG Pilot's auto tune to try and dial in everything. Tended to quite a windy day while we were there. It wasn't too bad when we first arrived, but it really started picking up by the time of the end of this flight, which you'll be able to see in the wind speed measurements, bottom right hand corner. But yeah, this is essentially what you're going to see in the goggles of the, well, I've got the Fat Shark Avatar system, but obviously the Walksnail goggles as well. They're identical, just different colours. Again, we're still getting that random spot of focus mode. In hindsight, I think it's actually to do with my patch antennas, which I took off my old DJI headset, which has obviously replaced the DJI headset. I'm a stickler for a good looking OSD, which the DJI system doesn't do. It's just bog standard kind of telemetry text, and I'm not fussed on that. I want to take it closer to the Eagle Tree vector, and the Walksnail system delivers that perfectly, and the video quality is frankly excellent, especially in the goggles. The kind of DVR footage doesn't really do it too much justice, to be fair with you. While everything looks fabulous, it's not. Yeah, it's just not an OLED panel. Unless you've got an OLED panel, then it might look pretty close, but not many do. Very expensive. You could buy a TV, or 2 or 3 TVs actually, for that price. You want an OLED panel. Yeah, it's a bit smoother higher up, about 60, 70 meters up off the ground. I'll be changing that to feet in the next flight. I'm not a fan of metric for aeronautical purposes. Imperial is the well and truly the dominant measurement system in aeronautics. Yeah, it's a lovely little plane. Was getting buffeted around by the wind. It was actually quite turbulent as well. I was getting a few spots of turbulence, which you'll see later in the video. Yeah, so I've got a pan tilt camera on this, which was my latest addition. A couple of metal geared servos. From the stripper servo, it's almost always going to be the pan servo, not the tilt, but the pan servo. I don't really do nylon geared servos anymore. It's just not worth the hassle. You just end up chucking them in the bin unless it's something to really light work. It's just a waste of money. It's worth spending an extra couple of quid on a Metal Gear servo, digital preferably, just gives you an extra bit of resolution. It is on a 360 continuous turn servo, so the pan at least, which isn't ideal, but and I will change it at some point, but for the moment it's fine. Just as soon as you move that pan turbo, put it back into smack bang central like it more or less is at the moment, it's very difficult. There's no centering. So we're just starting the auto tune now. So really, it actually puts on a really kind of low rate setting. So I was initially concerned that if I was going to sit there and yank and bank on the control stick, to full deflections, it might become quite difficult to fly. But no, RG Pilot really tones down the inputs. If you look at this is like a full deflection of the sticks as we're going around. And we want to do this, or they ask you to do it 20 times, so I was just doing it till it finished, and then I did it a bit more, another 10, 20 times after it had finished. And we say the roll's now finished its calibration. And we'll be moving into a pitch calibration now. You can see that popping up. Again, I thought that might be a lot more hairy than it is, but it's holding altitude relatively well, really dropping a few meters at a go. Still showing that the pitch is now finished. Turn around and do some yaw tuning, although interestingly RG Pilot didn't detect this, and I did give it a good bit of welly in the yaw rudder, and yeah, just got nothing really. I mean, it's quite happy with the pitch and roll at this point. I think just as we cross the threshold of the road below us, we'll start doing some rudder tests. There we go, you can see the rudder going there. There's a good amount of deflection with the rudder. Does help it to turn, especially with the V-tail. And we've just moved from auto tune into fly-by-wire A mode, at which point I was quite remarked at how smooth it was. Set a height, and it will sit there and it'll hold the attitude going in that particular direction, which is ideal really. Models actually quite overpowered. You're going to be able to, blasting along slightly later in the video, you'll see it doing around 85 miles an hour with the wind behind it on ground speed. So it's certainly no slouch. Not quite as quick as my very, very slippery flagship model, which is the Crosswind Mini. That is exceptionally overpowered to the point of almost ludicrously so. So I'm looking forward to upgrading the DJI transmitter on that to a Walksnail transmitter and getting a great OSD. And yeah, the custom font support, we're using Sneaky FPV's font set, which looks brilliant. I'd definitely recommend it if you're using ArduPilot, actually iNav or any of the others. It really is one of the best looking ones out there. There's a little bit of OSD delay, you'll notice it'll turn and then there's a little bit of delay before it appears. I've tried fixing that in the OSD recording tool because essentially just needs to have some delay added to it, but unfortunately there's no kind of like delay sync that you can add. It would be good if they added a small section of, you know, we know there's a 600 milliseconds or so of delay or something like that, and we type that in and it accounts for that. That would be ideal. But for the moment it's absolutely fine, and in the goggles you don't have this problem at all. It's all real time and working very nicely. One thing you can't see with the Swordfish is I do have the Walksnail transmitter sat inside the little cubby hole for it that AtomRC had built. It really struggles to keep cool with that in the cubby hole. I'm going to try lifting it up as close to the ram air scoop as I can. I think that might be part of the problem, is it's just not got enough airflow down there. The airflow might also be deflected by the pan tilt servo combo, although that is set to be ultra lightweight. The CNG is great, but I did have to add 15 grams of ballast to the tail to hold two 2200 mAh batteries, 4-cell batteries. They're only little 20C batteries, so they haven't got a lot of discharge capacity, but for what we're using them for, it's more than adequate, and they're quite small. I think a kind of slightly smaller than an 18650 battery pack, and we don't have to worry about overcurrent in the battery. Got a small roll there, just to see how aerobatic it was. It's not the quickest of turns, and that was full deflection, and the ailerons have a ton of deflection sat on them at the moment. I didn't want to play with that. I just wanted ArduPilot to kind of work out where it is and if it needs to be able to chuck that deflection in order to counter an erroneous command of some sorts. Coming down as I've heard a plane. My wife just given me a quick nod that there was a plane in the vicinity. And interestingly, they like to fly over the laser site that we're just going to be turning out and looking at there. I think we might be able to just make out the observatory in the distance. They like to fly right over that direction, right over the laser site, even though it's very clearly marked on CAA's mappings and stuff, and have no problem with impeding the observatory, which is quite a shame, and so it knocks on with the model flying, especially how low some of the planes are flying around here. But luckily they're all kind of turboprop or just, you know, standard props, so we can hear them from many miles away. So you have plenty of time to get down and out of the way before they turn up. And as long as you're keeping it at the 400 feet height, I think we're generally alright, really. So yeah, we're just going to go around and do a little bit of flying, just really kind of enjoy the experience, to be honest. I was very much wowed. Yeah, I've come from DJI V1, which I was pretty wowed when I picked those up, but as soon as I put the avatars on my face, I was kind of shocked by the clarity I was seeing. I mean, if you look down right now, you can see all the detail in the you know, kind of tufts of grass. You can see where the tractors have been driving across the grass. You can see the model flying strip very clearly. It's a lovely little place in the kind of middle of nowhere, so it's quite handy. Just noticed the strips are actually slightly wonky. I mentioned that to the gardener, who bops down every 3 or 4 weeks to give it a bloody good mow. The water's quite high in the dike this year, so hopefully that means we won't have moans of water shortages from southeast water. That would be ideal. Yeah, so got a reasonable wind going, about 20 km/h wind. It was forecast to be a bit windier towards the end of the day. I think it's around 5:30 when I was flying this little mission. Yeah, the fly-by-wire mode is actually quite useful. It stops the banking beyond 40 degrees, although you can change that. And if you bank to 40 degrees, it will give the appropriate amount of elevated deflection to ensure you stay at your current height. So that's very handy. I was actually quite surprised by the fly-by-wire mode, trying to compare it to the vector stabilized mode, which would usually not be particularly great with altitude. Yeah, just kind of pulling around and again just testing aerodynamics of the aircraft, making sure it does what it says on the tin, popping in a little bit of servo trim every now and again, really. So flying over the helipad for the model field. Yeah, it's a great little model. So really to kind of run over what went wrong with this flight. I've had a lot of problems as I've built the model, specifically with the compass and GPS, and a lot of times where it's saying, GPS isn't there, the compass isn't there, or the compass has variance. And it's one of the kind of mid-range GPS compass kind of doodads that you can buy. Costs about £30, £35. So I can't remember exactly what the model is. It's like an MQ9 or something like that. It's one of the cheaper models from Matexus. So for the next flight, I've decided to purchase one of their kind of flagship GPS sensors, the M10, which has a built-in barometer as well as compass with considerably higher and better parts that it's built of. So hopefully that should reduce or eliminate my issues with your pre-arm errors. Just seems to randomly show itself, and you unplug it, plug it back in, and it'll restart, and no problem that time. So bit of an annoyance, but that's what it is really. It's my myself and wife stood as my competent observer. Always keeping an eye out for the planes on anything around it. I actually try to avoid flying if my wife's not there. I don't know if it's a bad omen or what, but every time she's not there, usually one of my models go clearing into the ground. So maidens, most especially, are done with my wife available to help out. Just going for a little bit of a slightly further kind of flight. Yeah, the other good thing about fly-by-wire mode is if you drop that stick, it will just instantly center itself as quickly as it can, and then try and compensate for the wind and what's not. The current monitor is definitely quite wildly out. It's by the time I landed, I've gone home and put the batteries back on and charged them, and it's yeah, they weren't particularly happy batteries. They've gone a bit too low because I was judging it on the kind of MAR, which was completely wrong. But we still achieved, I think, about a 40-minute flight roughly, and that was me, you know, blasting around. There was no cruising or anything like that. It was, you know, the throttle was up and down. So I suspect we could probably get another 5-10 minutes out of it. It's a very conservative flying. I suspect you could probably get an hour. It's got a couple of 2200 miles in 2 parallel 4-cell batteries, and that gives it plenty of power. And they're not particularly heavy. I think they're about 170 grams per battery. So again, I think as soon as you put anything over like, I don't know, like a 3000 mile, you're going to have a bit of a nose heavy problem with this model. So the easiest thing is just to take a little bit of ballast. So there's only 15 grams of ballast. I mean, you could probably put a slightly larger battery in here. You just got to offset that centre of gravity issue with some ballast at the back of the model. Well, 4-cell, it's very sprightly. It really does go. So I think the model will be very comfortable on a 3-cell battery as well. It will still have plenty of power available to it for flying with. And probably worth a go. I've got a 3-cell 6.5k battery that I would like to give it a go. Probably have to put another 5-10 grams of ballast at the back for that though, which isn't horrendous, but again, it's just kind of carrying dead weight. You know, focus mode's going into maximum overtime then, and we're back out again with good quality everywhere. And I've got to say that the quality of the camera is excellent, and the fact that you see this in the goggles at this kind of quality level is insane really. It's not really, you know, obviously it's a subjective opinion, but it's there. In my opinion, I won't be going back to the DJI HDV ones, apart from to fly my whoops until I can get a 1-cell VTX for them and just fly digital instead. I do think analog's days are getting numbered. I know it certainly won't be dying within the next few years, but I suspect in the next 5 years that analog will slowly become a thing of the past, as others like HD0 in particular for race quads continues to improve. Just recently released a 1080p 30 FPS mode, and it does look very good. Not so sure about the breakup. Obviously got some kind of digital and analog thing going there with their system. Yeah, great little systems. Yeah, the real thing that kind of won me over between Walksnail and DJI O3s was a cost. Obviously being a key one at £208 per VTX. I was thinking that's quite on the top end of you know, costs really, and obviously it does include a 4K sensor, but we're using the Sony Starvis 2 in here, which is itself a 4K sensor that obviously can't transmit at that. I believe I have seen somewhere that Walksnail said they will be doing a 4K kind of DVR recording thing. I imagine that will push up the price somewhere near but below an O3 transmitter, because I suspect where a lot of that extra price is going to is into that. The other thing is Walksnail clearly listens to their community. That is a huge thing for me as a owner of DJI V1s. You did feel pretty kind of, are they actually going to do anything anymore with it? Which was somewhat frustrating, but is what it is, I suppose. But obviously then we had the WTF guys with Margarine rootkitting the V1s and V2s, which is brilliant. It really did kind of open up that system. And while they've still got their place of V1s, and they will have to for the next few years, I do think it's the end of life for the V2s, especially, will be coming up soon. Especially with the DJI Integra being released. I don't really see any kind of use case for those O3s unless people are really very much wanting to do analog still. The V1s really were that transition phase, in my opinion. That could do analog, but it could also do digital at the same time. I certainly have no need for an analog. Goggles, I've got my Sky Zones buried somewhere. I've got my DJI V2s, DJI V1s I've just upgraded to obviously the Walksnail that you're looking at them right now. And yeah, so looking forward to going out a little bit further next time. Just having a kind of peek around the surroundings. Got to admit, it hasn't ever been quite this clear flying. It's quite remarkable, really, and our kind of next stop really is 2.5K and 4K. So interested to see what comes in the next. I would say if we're looking at the next 5 years, I suspect we'll be doing 4K to the goggles. I did actually have a look to see where Fat Shark get their OLED panels from. Found a Chinese company that sell 1080p 0.49 inch displays, and frankly it's incredible really to be able to fit 1920 by 1080 pixels in the space of 0.49 of an inch. Really very incredible. But obviously what drives the cost of these headsets significantly will be those displays. That is a very niche display, not used everywhere. Although I would be interested to see, Fat Shark introduce a 4K goggle, and we've got the screens there really already. Say for example the ByteDance VR headset that recently come out. That is a pair of panels that output a 4K of very similar size. It's not the Quest 2, it's the Pico 4, that's the one I was looking for, the Pico 4. And it'd be actually quite interesting because that does have a HDMI in, so it makes me wonder if you could plug in a VRX into the Pico 4 and see what kind of quality you get coming down from it with HDMI in. Be very interesting, in fact. It might be a project in the future because obviously it's capable of upscaling. I've been running the PC with Nvidia's AI video upscaling, which is pretty good until you see some faces, but it seems to kind of give them almost a water brushed effect in some ways with faces, but nonetheless very nice. It's continuing to just fly around really. Can see my son just running up the airstrip. It's a nice place to go to as well because the children love to explore, and when in a field in the middle of nowhere they're finding all sorts of creepy crawlies to have a look at, just run down and burn some energy, which is always sorely needed with children, to help them get to sleep at night. So yeah, it's been a great little field. I've been a member on and off for the last nearly 18 years, so getting on a bit really. Anyway, I do need to sort out the RSSI. It'll only go up to a maximum of about 60 something. It's running the FR Sky R9 with a little bit of telemetry down it, but will be upgrading in the near future to a Dragon Link receiver with a 1000 milliwatt transceiver on there for telemetry, which will be plenty of distance. And Dragon Link gives me a sense of security, and it's not a full sense. It's a very, very good system. I highly recommend checking it out. Mike, the owner, always on hand to answer your questions. Even with my slightly older V2 system, I had to build up a ESP32 Wi-Fi board to offload the Mavlink data into the transmitter, but you can get the I think it's Taboo or something like that, the OSD telemetry system on your radio to work very easily once again. And the good thing about having a Wi-Fi chip built into it is my wife can actually literally load Mission Planner up on her mobile phone or what's not, and go through and be able to watch what's going on the mobile phone. Of course, obviously we have the kind of HDMI out being put onto like a tablet or something of that effect, and they'll be able to see what the plane's seeing. I think this is one of the things they'd like to see. And again, flying over my wife and children, trying to buzz them a little bit. Good fun, very good fun. You can see the battery's starting to sag a little bit, and again, that current sensor is definitely not right. And interestingly, if you look there, we were pulling a peak of 40 amps, so I suspect it's actually slightly higher than that. But the ESCs are good up to 60 amps, and the wiring and cabling is certainly up to the task. So no worries there. Again, being able to, you have to be quite careful lifting mine and not trying to burn that C rating too much. 40 amps, you're not going to get really many batteries unless they're very, very, the smaller capacities, high discharge variants of lithium ions will probably be your best bet there. But you'd have to be very careful with the throttle. Many more, really dragging many more than kind of, well, depending, because it's even as bad as 10 amps off of 21700 cell. I would like to give it a go, and I will do at some point, but for the moment these little dinky 2200 mile packs are ideal. Don't give too much hassle. The COG is good, so consequently I don't want to kind of really play with it much more in terms of COG and how much extra capacity I can stick inside this. So 45 minutes is perfectly long enough. You usually get a bad neck by then from the weight of the goggles on your head. And I have my flagship model, which is the real kind of heavy cruiser with a 16 amp hour battery in there, 4-cell, which we will have some more videos coming up over the course of this summer. There's always a few like the video and would like some more content, please subscribe. Gives me an idea of what people want, and if you're interested in what's been shown. Starting to slow down a little bit now, just to kind of taper the plane out. I did notice that the battery was sagging down a little bit on the higher amp draws. The bitrate does seem to fluctuate quite a bit on 50 megabit mode. I'm hoping that Walksnail on their next firmware, this is running the version 33 that come out early May 2023. So this is what you can expect on your goggles in the latest firmware, if you choose to by it and you're just not kind of watching for the sake of watching. Definitely highly recommended. And comparing this footage against the live feed from the O3 unit, it's pretty hard to tell them apart at this point. The latest image quality enhancements Walksnail's been doing over the last year or so, they are technically there. There's probably some additional improvements that they can make. But, we're up at 50 odd meters and we can look down and see all the knobbly bobbly bits all across the ground. It's given a good indication of the kind of pixel density, looking at those knobbly bobbly bits. These would look a lot more smudged at a 720p mode or 25 megabits. At 1080p you really want to be as close to 50 as you possibly can. The higher the bandwidth, the better the link's going to be. And frankly, really, if you think about it, it's that the megabits per second is pretty reasonable. Many people won't even have that going into their home for their internet. Yeah, we're going to be turning off that focus mode though, as I really don't like it. It's just unusable in the corner. Sometimes it'll come back, but we're only down at 25 megabits. We don't need to have it that bad in quality. Went out for a little jaunt out there just to test and make sure the RC link was all right. I didn't see any issues. Again, I need to sort that out. You'll see again it's still sat around 60 and we're coming right up to me now. That should be pretty much 100, so I think that's just a scaling thing from the RC pin, the RSSI pin rather. The wind is still sticking around 19 kilometers an hour. You can see it's pushing the plane off to the left, and we're being pushed off over the road. So having to constantly correct. I did find when I tested RTL though, return to launch mode, is it did appropriately compensate for the wind flying back and was flying quite a almost a ruddered. There we go. The RTL's now switched on. As you see, it's pointing more or less at the wind direction, but as you can see, we're continuing to jaunt off to the right with RTL. It's taken us the right direction. The kind of amp draw is good. Again, it's higher than that. It's not right at the moment. We're doing about 45 kilometers an hour airspeed, so well above stall speed. Again, I want to kind of pull this down once I've got the amperage working properly, because I was just basing it off of voltage. You'll see soon that the voltage will start falling off the face of the planet as the capacity of the battery comes to a close. So they put literally 4200 back into these. Apparently there was only 100 mile left in each battery pack, which is not where I wanted to be. It's a bit too low to the point where it's starting to cause damage. One thing I have ordered is, I don't know if you probably noticed during the flight, there's been a bit of jello. You can see it right now, sort of the vibration coming through. That looks like harmonics on the props for whatever reason, but I have ordered a prop balancer just so we can make sure those props are well balanced, because I think a lot of the kind of vibration is coming from those motors vibrating around. So we're just coming out and coming to the end of the flight now. We're going to do a quick run over close up of the airstrip. We'll be going down the longish but thinner main runway. As you can see, the wind is almost literally straight down it, which was quite nice for this flight. It made it very easy to land. So I'm just going to do a quick turn and spin around and set up for a final. We're just on the downwind leg now. We'll be turning into the upwind leg into a final and landing. So you're still getting blown around. You see the aircraft's been pushed to the right. But yeah, we're kind of more or less in line now. It'd be nice to have a little glide slide feature here. But yeah, I'm just trying to extend it out to get it as close to me as possible, just to be lazy. But yeah, just a landing and more or less it. Thanks for watching. Cheers.